Hi there, I'm Paul Merriam.
Hello friends, welcome to a live stream. My name is Max Panko, and in this streaming I'm going to talk about cloud hosting, Magento 2, Magento open source, and how we can set up Magento 2 e-commerce website with the help of cloud hosting. Please let me know how you see me, whether the quality of image is good enough, and if you hear me well, so we can start. And in the meantime, I will share the link to this live stream so more people can join. As always, I do live streams on ad hoc basis, and not always it helps to people to join this live stream. However, there would be a recording, so if you miss this one, you can rewatch it later. But here on live stream, I will be able to answer any questions that you might have. Must have channel, hello. Let me know if you hear me well, so I can understand. Cool, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So, what is our plan for today? I would like to share with you my experience and my understanding, and I will walk you through my steps, through my knowledge, and we will set up cloud hosting with all necessary libraries, databases, tools that would help Magento 2 to work online. So in the meantime, I would like to open Facebook. And if you have friends or colleagues, feel free to share the link to this live stream so they can also join. Alright, so let me switch to another screen. Maybe let me put chat somewhere here. Or I can do it in a different way. 1 second. Capture. capture. Yeah, so we will do probably without chat. However, feel free to use live chat in order to ask me questions. What did I want to do? Cool. Perfect. For the new guys who just joined our live stream, my name is Max Franco, and here we're going to discuss on how we can set up cloud hosting and Magento 2. Hopefully Magento latest version. Could you use and increase sound volume? It is on the lower side now. Let me know if you hear me well. And if the sound is good enough. Check. Check. Yeah, let me know if you hear me, because it's a bit strange. Should be fine. Yeah. Must have channel, let me know. How is my sound? Let me know how is the quality of the sound. Just want to understand if we can start. Alright, I think we will start, and then if there will be questions, comments. So, let's start. Magento 2, if we open system requirements, Magento 2 system requirements, it evolved in the way that nowadays it requires lots of software dependencies, and it's becoming harder and harder to configure Magento 2 website, whether it's locally or even for let's say staging, production environment. And these dependencies are just growing, and it takes and consumes lots of time when thinking about setting up Magento 2 website. So from the recent changes, what we have here, so first of all, we have composer dependency, Elasticsearch, that seems like not supported with the latest Magento 247 P1 and Magento 247. OpenSearch is supported. It's a new dependency that was introduced due to the fact that Elasticsearch has changed their license. MariaDB/MySQL, Commerce on Cloud. PHP version 8.2, 8.3, RabbitMQ, and Redis. It's for the latest version of Magento open source and cloud. Open source and cloud. So commerce on premise, it's interesting that there is no Magento open source version and system requirements that seems like they're just not here on the website. So software dependencies: Composer, Elasticsearch, OpenSearch, MariaDB, MySQL, PHP, Varnish, Apache, and Jinx. So one or the other or both of them. It depends on how you will configure it. MySQL S3 as optional. MQ, Elasticache. So it's not like all software dependencies that have to be configured. It's like all supported software dependencies that may be used with the latest version of Magento. And previous versions have some a bit different maybe versions, let's say PHP or Composer. As you can see, Composer 2.7 version is supported with the latest version of Magento Commerce and Magento open source. And yeah, some software dependencies for previous versions. So what we are interested in when thinking about setting up Magento open source or Magento Commerce is what needs to be set up on the server. Let's talk about local version of Magento setup. So on the magemastery.net website, there is a page under resources extensions, and I collected a list of extension tools packages that free to use, of course, that help, whether it's in development of Magento applications, websites, or in configuring Magento and using and running Magento locally or on cloud. So there is a first section called Magento installation, and there are 3 packages that currently exist on this page that can be used in order to simplify the process of local installation of all dependencies, software dependencies for Magento 2. And as you can see, the most stars as of now has Docker Magento package by Mark Schust, and this is usually what I use currently for local development. There is also a new package that I would also recommend if you would like to try. It's Madoc and Magento 2 server installation. So usually, let me roll back a little bit. With Magento 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, it was pretty much straightforward and easy to set up everything locally, whether it's Ubuntu or Mac OS. So you set up a database, which was MySQL, PHP, some version, whatever, 7.4 at that time, some Apache server, and maybe Varnish, but Varnish was optional as far as I remember. And you are free to go and run it. But with version 2.3, 2.4, it became harder and harder to set up and manage all the dependencies. And overall, it's harder to keep track on all versions of all software that have to be installed. That's why there are some tools or packages that can help you to be more productive and spend less time when it comes to setting up Magento locally. I remember for a new project, for me to set up project, I did spend a day or something, including like backups, transferring, configuring everything locally. So it was hard and it took me way too much time until I switched to, when I was on Windows, I switched to using VMs, and then on it was way like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And then with Mac OS, I was very kind of slow in terms of jumping into Docker. But when I jumped to Docker, I realized that this is something I would like to use, because I'm not a really big fan spending like hundreds of hours setting up environments and finding out what went wrong in the super long process of hundreds of steps when it comes to setting up all software dependencies, libraries, tools, databases, and so on. So I stopped with using Docker. So I started using Docker, and I'm pretty much happy because it simplifies your local development. You basically run a couple of commands. Let's say there is a documentation, and couple of commands, I mean like 3 commands, and you have your Magento local application installed and ready to develop some Magento 2 extensions. And yeah, few more commands like setting up sample data, and there is even manual setup for new projects with additional commands, or existing projects. So with existing projects is something when you go and you need to start a client's project, and this is called existing project, so you can follow this step-by-step script in order to prepare a client's project locally. This is pretty straightforward list of instructions that you can apply locally in order to start building Magento, fixing clients' projects. So, and when it comes to cloud hosting or setting up Magento in cloud, there are few or multiple options that you can go ahead with. First option is probably straightforward, not like straightforward, but one of the ways I started back in I don't know, like 7-8 years ago. It was just you have a server and you have this bunch of dependencies that you have to install on the server, and you basically install all the libraries, databases, dependencies, and then you configure Magento. It was one of the ways, and I followed it with basically when I was using AWS, so you install everything manually. Or for example, DigitalOcean also provides you a droplet or a server or VM, as they say, in seconds. And you receive a vanilla server, and you start setting up everything, including like Magento. The second thing that happened in terms of how you can set up Magento in cloud is something more automated and maybe straightforward. Something like Cloudways. So what Cloudways does, they use different cloud hosting providers like DigitalOcean, Valtteri, I never use it, Linode, AWS, and Google Cloud. And on top, they have some sort of scripts and automation in order to simplify your developers' life. And yeah, they basically automate lots of things. You select also a server, capacity of the server, and you can set up a server in a matter of minutes. So instead of you typing all the commands as a DevOps, you get a user-friendly web interface where you click, I want this latest version of Magento, and you start, and you basically wait 5 minutes, and you are good to go. And there is a third way of cloud solution. It's something similar to platform as such. So it's a platform as a service. Yeah, it's not software as a service. It's platform as a service, where you have all your server configuration added into the YAML files, and based on its instructions or configuration, and based on these YAML files that are also committed as part of your Magento project, you use something like platform SH, and you install the project using your instructions that are part of platform SH instructions, and you set up your whether production, staging, or developer environment. So 3 ways. First one, you set up everything yourself. Second way, so it's something like DigitalOcean, AWS, or any hosting provider, Hetzner. This is also, you can pick cloud, dedicated servers, or whatever. You get a server machine, and you set up everything on your own. Then something like Cloudways, where you have some automation, and basically instead of you setting up and spending hours, unless you have a script that is basically something you run and it will configure it. But I was having such scripts, and usually these scripts somehow were you can run the script only on a particular type of cloud hosting, let's say AWS, or I remember I was having a DigitalOcean script with all the commands that are required in order to configure Magento to production server. Cloudways gives you some web interface. There may be other options. I'm pretty much sure that Nexus also similar to Cloudways, managed hosting services that you can use in order to configure Magento in cloud. Or platform as a service, it's like when you would like to control everything from a configuration, when your team is more technical rather than non-technical, like non-business type of thinking, and you can configure and manage. If you have a huge team or you have a huge project, you can use platform SH. So, if you have any questions, please let me know. I will check chat. If you don't have any questions, also let me know if you hear me, if you see me, if yeah. Let's communicate. This is a type of live streaming videos where we can ask questions, answer questions, and have some sort of interaction. All right. So if you would have questions, just leave them in the live chat, and I will be checking this live chat, and I will try to answer these questions. So going back to setting up cloud hosting, as I said that you can pick vanilla Ubuntu type of server, and you can start setting up everything on your own. You can select let's say DigitalOcean pricing and system requirements. What I wanted to check, it's memory limit or something, required PHP settings and memory limit for Magento 2 or Magento Commerce. So official Magento documentation or Adobe Commerce documentation says Adobe recommends the following: compile code or deploying static assets 1 GB, debugging 2 GB, and testing 3 to 4 GB. So if we check PHP settings, back to droplets, let's say DigitalOcean. For the droplets, you can see different options: regular droplets, premium Intel, premium AMD. And usually what I do in my team and what we prepare for our clients, we select from premium Intel or premium AMD when it comes to production environments. If it's some sort of staging, testing, or user acceptance testing, servers, regular should be fine. Second thing that for the, I tested multiple times. And so let's say Magento says 1 GB. If it's not obvious and it's not clear, Adobe recommends the following: compiling code or deploying static assets. Maybe they say no. So 1 GB, let's say I read it straight, 1 GB of memory is not enough for Magento open source and Adobe Commerce. I wouldn't even recommend trying. 2 GB, well, I tried, but it's probably better to use on not even on staging environments, but maybe on developers type of environments where you need to deploy and check whether it compiles, or if it's, yeah, if your feature is enableable or it meets some of the business requirements. Because with 2 GB of memory, it's slow, it's really slow, and I wouldn't recommend going and using 2 GB for Magento. But it's possible. As I said, it's possible to run, let's say if you have a small budget or you would like to have some developer environment, 2 GB maybe acceptable, but it's not recommended. 3, 4 for testing. So that's probably a minimum droplets that can be used for testing. So let's say you would like to configure staging environment or user acceptance testing, but again, with limited usage, you shouldn't run any integration test, any performance test, because it will kill the server with huge number of incoming requests and or usage of CPU virtual CPU, and memory. Because as far as I remember, if you will combine varnish that is in memory, if you will combine Redis, OpenSearch, you would need way more than, let's say, 4 gigabytes of memory, especially when it comes to CPU. You would need definitely more. So, and what I usually do, I start with something like 8 gigabytes for CPUs. In rare occasions, again, I'm talking about small to medium websites, Magento 2 websites with, I cannot say about exact traffic, but small, medium Magento 2 websites would, such servers would be acceptable for this type of S and small and medium applications. My default option is 8 gigabytes, but if whether it's a peak season or time of the year for a particular business, or traffic increases, I then switch to 16 gigabytes and maybe 4 or 8 CPUs. So, and whether it's Premium Intel or AMD, it's when it comes to DigitalOcean. For the Cloudways, so basically what Cloudways does, they, again, let's talk about this option. 4 gigabytes and 2-core processor costs $54 per month. And here, plus minus the same, 32. So it's identical DigitalOcean droplet, but on top of the droplet, Cloudways adds automation and user interface, so-called cPanel, that is used for managing your staging and production environments. So let me log in. And I have to find my password. And here I'm inside Cloudways, and I would like to go ahead with Cloudways cloud hosting because, as I said, it simplifies the process of installing Guys, let me know in the live chat whether you hear me. So it says connection excellent. However, I can imagine that there is some delays in video streaming. So let me know. And for the new guys, here we are going step by step and setting up Magento 2 cloud hosting in order to run Magento 2 application. And currently we are waiting for the Cloudways to finish our server preparation and installing our Magento 2 application. That is going to be Magento 246. 246. Yeah, 2 minutes left. And as I said, that there are a couple of ways how you can set up server for Magento 2. One is manual, one is automated, like this one. So you just click 3 times and basically you're just waiting for the server installation to be completed. And third one is a configuration based installation where you have scripts or instructions stored in YAML file that are going to be used to prepare servers and server dependencies for you on your behalf. And the configuration is usually stored in Magento 2 source code in Git, basically, together with the project. So in the meantime, what I would like to do, we will prepare PHP Storm. We will also prepare Git, because we're going to put everything under Git. And we will set up staging server, I think. Cool, so I have a server that was successfully installed all dependencies, and as you can see we have applications installed on the server and projects. It's in one project. And I have Magento 2. Magento 2 is the name of my application. It could be like your client's name of the project. And I have application URL. I have admin panel. I have database manager. And basically I have everything that I may need. Magento database, admin panel, and homepage. Yeah, let's have a look at the network. And we have loads from the server, where is 20 milliseconds. So it's varnish response. I might guess it's cached version of the, yeah, and non-cached is server response less than half a second. Yeah, 520 milliseconds, and then it goes to 20 milliseconds. So we have varnish here, and what I wanted to do, let me log in. Cool. 246p5. New pop-up that shows additional information about security patches. And I have a server that was set up for me, and I can start configuring it. So primary domain is some random variation of Cloudways apps.com and Magento blah blah random hash or something, random digits. This URL can be configured to be a production URL. So in order to do this, you can go ahead and add domain example.com or whatever, magemastery.net, and you can reset up domains for this application. Then also you can set up staging, and we will do this in a bit. You can check analytics or logs. Logs is very handy, because otherwise if you don't have this requested pages, if you don't have, it's a new addition, slow pages, so Cloudways shows you a list of slow pages, and probably I will have a home page as a slow page. No? Page requests. Admin HTML. Average time in seconds, 24 seconds. So there is something that we can improve. And yeah, as I said, access log, error log is something that very handy, because otherwise you need to log in SSH to the server and see what is happening. PHP logs. Showing the recent 1000 log entries. For full logs, you still have to do SSH or SFTP. So cron management is also something that is required as part of running Magento 2. As we can see, we have advanced a list of default crons configured on our behalf by Cloudways, and we have here bin Magento cron run that is stored in Magento cron log, and we delete all sessions that are longer than 30 days. Cool. And basic provides nothing. SSL certificates that we shouldn't worry about it. Backup and restore is also a handy one. So at your hand, you can configure backups to run, let's say, on a daily basis, because it's really critical one. If you're running production server, you need backups, and you need an ability to restore these backups, getting application backup dates. So it will not find any backups, obviously. Take backup now. Backup. Take backup now. So when backups can be used? First of all, to restore your production environment, then you can use it to configure your staging environment. However, you have to make sure that you don't have any sensitive data like customer information or credit card data. or some, I don't know, production passwords that may be used on production environment. Or you can use this backup. Again, it depends what are we backing up, but it's a source code and database. You can use backup to configure your local project, and you can have the latest version of the database configured locally. Configure it locally. So anyway, let's move on. It's doing backup, so we probably have to wait. Recover server, add server. What it does, it performs backup on our behalf. Yeah, and for the, if you would like to try Cloudways, I will have a link below this video in the description of this video with some discounts, so you can get some offer, whether it's 1 month free or it's 50% free. So you can try on your own pace, or if you would like to follow this video along together with me, you can click the link below this video and you can set up your free account on the Cloudways. The link is probably a referral link, and maybe I will get some commission, of course, if you will continue using Cloudways and you will start working with Cloudways, and Cloudways will give me some commission on for the referral. But again, it's no additional charge to you, it's just a nice gesture. So we do have a backup. This backup was configured, this backup was done just now. And what I was interested in generating SSH key. So what I usually do, I usually SSH to my server, and in order to SSH to my server, I have to use these master credentials. SSH username, public IP, yes, and I'm inside my server. Htop is my favorite command. So as we can see, we have 4 gigabytes of memory and 2 CPUs. This is exactly what we did. Also here we can see Redis, Elasticsearch. Redis, Elasticsearch, MariaDB, PHP, varnish. So basically everything that is needed for the the sound is doubled. I switched off one of the microphones, but because probably I was having two microphones, and I hope that sound is better now. Let me know in the live chat so I can react. So what I wanted to say is that this and it runs on PHP 8.1. If we will check PHP 8.1. So where we are, master ls-la, and if we will go to applications directory, well, it's symlink to home blah blah cloudwaysapps.com, and we have here our project under public HTML. We have our Magento. So if I will try and run bin Magento version, we can see 246p5 or bin Magento. Fully functional Magento 2 application may be prepared for being or promoted to production environment. Why? Because there is a second setting. If we will navigate to applications, not setting but a page or a tab on this applications page called staging management, and we can configure staging environment. That's why it is going to be a separate application that is going to be copied from this directory and with this database. Alright, so deployment via Git. It's another topic that is a must-have when it comes to using Cloudways for Magento 2 projects. We can run git status. We can see that there is absolutely nothing. And it means that A, on this server we have Git installed, but B, Git remote, as far as Git config. Git config, Git remote list. So we have to connect our, or in my case, my GitHub project or GitHub, and we have to download and configure, push the project into the GitHub. For this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to open GitHub. I'm going to click new repository. Let's call it Cloudways Magento 2. And I will click create repository. And here is my list of instructions for the new project. That is not the case, and for the existing project. In my case, for my scenario, I have existing project because this project was configured by Cloudways. And what I need to do, I just need to go ahead and follow these instructions that were provided by GitHub. So inside public HTML, I will run git remote at origin and the URL of my repository. Where am I? Not a Git repository. Git init. Then git add. dubious ownership. What's wrong with ownership? So let me run this command. And let me run, what did I run? Git add. Commands that will add all the files, excluding files that are listed in git ignore. And unfortunately, we don't have git ignore configured by Cloudways, so it's probably an action item for Cloudways team in order to improve, because it will add me. Let's add git ignore file. So vi space .git ignore, and let's add vendor, and that's it. Git status. So I need an example for the Magento 2 that will help me. Git ignore example. So as I said, that usually what I do, let me search. Docker, the Magento 246 PHP 8.2 and cut git ignore. Oops, src, cut git ignore. There is also no git ignore. So what was I doing? Git adds. So I did terminate git add all files, but it's still running, so I either have to wait and or I have to delete this file that is responsible for locking RAM. So git status. Yeah, we need proper git file because it will add everything from a var directory. Git reset. Git remove edit changes. Git reset var git status and I have to add var directory. So again, let me copy git ignore from one of the existing Magento 2 projects, and it would be probably faster and easier. It may not be the best git ignore, however, it will git status, git add, git ignore, git status. Cool. So I added my files, git branch minus m, git commit minus m, added project files, and I have to configure email and username, and only then I can do git commit. Cool. Git commit, git branch, git remote at origin, and git push. I may require SSH key. Your Git repository should support Git over SSH. An SSH key identifies your blah blah server. You will first need to generate and download an SSH key. It's very easy. Just click the button below. Generate SSH key. What did I do? View deployment logs. Git remote address. Invalid. Maybe I have to provide this one. Yes. Authenticating Git. Again, otherwise what you would need to do, you would need to go to your server, SSH to your server, and generate key, SSH key pair, and use public key, and add this public key into your GitHub SSH keys. In GitHub account SSH keys, in order for server, and activate that private key on the server, in order for server to have access to the, what is happening? To have access to the to your GitHub project. View SSH, download SSH. What we need to do? Authenticating Git. For some reason I'm not receiving any pop-ups. Why? Or access rights issue. So I have to add my key, so I just downloaded that key, so let me go ahead, find settings. And where is my SSH key? SSH key. I have to authenticate on GitHub in order to add the key. So I added SSH key under my profile, settings, SSH and GBG keys. And let me get back and click authenticate, and hopefully I will get access to my Git. Yes, to my Git and deployment path. I am afraid to hit start deployment. Okay, so I need to push my changes. Push my changes from the git status. Git log -1. This one. Git status. Git log -1. Edit project files, and final step is to push my changes to my GitHub. Check. Git push -u origin main. Again, I have access issue, and what I need to do, it seems like I need to generate a public key here. Still, I have to generate public key in order to, because this one is just for deployment. Let's have a look. Generate SSH key. Linux. So cd my email, yes, phrase, cool. What I need to do, I have to eval SSH key and add my SSH key, private key, to SSH agent. So this key can be used to access GitHub. I probably have to hide this public SSH key. So I can add it to my GitHub and I can have access to GitHub. So again, my profile, settings, and let me try and set up SSH key. All right. What are we doing here? we are doing git push origin main. So ls-la applications public HTML and git push origin main. We now have our project under git. And now I can configure this project locally and start setting up. So what do we have here? We have deployment via git. That we have to fetch. And it can see branch, and we can deploy using deployment path. Okay, start deployment. Let's hit start deployment. And let's see what will happen. Obviously nothing critical should happen because we don't have any changes that are different from what we just downloaded from the Cloudways hosting. And B, git status, git log -1. And B, so we can pull the changes from our GitHub remote. So what I can do, I can go ahead and mkdir Cloudways, cd Cloudways, and I can git clone my project. Navigate to my project. Git log -1. And I can do some changes. But again, as I said, that this project has to be locally set up, and for this I would be using from this page on Mastery best Magento extensions. Magento installation, I would choose package to be able to install my Magento locally, so I can perform changes. On a side note, our hosting uses PHP 8.1 and my local is PHP 8.1. It means that at least I can run composer commands and, let's say, add some dependencies or update dependencies. But from downside, for me, not to run some local Magento 2 application with this source code after running composer commands is that I also not only have to run composer commands, but I also have to run bin Magento commands. And that's why I have to configure this project locally and install it locally in order for me to run bin Magento commands and add some changes. However, what we can do, we can, what are we doing here? We can create some change, and with the help of deployment via Git, we can click pull and see if this change will appear in our. So instead of going and performing SSH to our git log, running git pull from here, we can go to Cloudways applications management deployment via git and hit pull, so we can deploy directly from the Cloudways panel. And let me open the project. So here is my project, and as I said, that for me to perform some changes I need local version, but before doing some local version setup, I would like to modify some file. What file would I change? Composer JSON file, probably. Oh, sorry, git ignore, because we have generated code that came from the server, and this code should not be here because it's after generated, and it's generated when we run bin Magento setup di compile command, and this code should not appear here. But again, yes, so that's fine. And what I would do, first of all, I would do a new branch, develop, and secondly, deleted generated code files. Commit and push. And it will appear in a develop directory. Remember that this is our production environment, and deployment via git will go to the from main directory, and we just push to develop directory. So what it means is that we have a second directory that can be potentially used for staging environment, and for staging environment we can go and navigate to staging management and launch staging application based on a production same server. As you can see, we can add a different server for staging. We will use same server, and we will hit continue. It will use main branch, but since we have a develop branch, let me create a pull request. But I won't merge it until I will check that my staging environment that is currently under creation. Staging environment is configured with develop branch, so I can have two different branches, so I can test my changes on staging environment before merging it to main branch and before deploying these changes to production environment. So this is my plan for the two applications that I would like to hold as of now on the same server. However, Cloudways allows you to configure multiple servers for different environments, staging, UAT, whatever. Developer, or even for performance testing. For performance testing, it's probably recommended to use a separate environment because you can configure a huge server in order to run your performance tests. In the meantime, what can be done? We can configure, I am going to use Docker-based environment for Magento 2. And I can scroll and I would like to configure, I would do existing projects because it's existing project, and this tutorial is good for, again, we have existing project and it's an example of existing project. B, when you have a real project and you start working on client's project and you can configure this project locally. And we're going to configure this project locally. That's why let's go ahead, and while we are waiting for staging environment, we can go back and we can create let's call it Magento. CD Magento, and we can run download Docker Compose template inside Magento directory. It's on local environment because on Cloudways we are creating staging application. And here we have a dump with MySQL, but MySQL is going to be, we're going to get it, we will see. We created a database dump and we are going to use that database dump. It's first thing, and second thing, we have to copy, or we can move our source code files. So here we are inside Docker template, and here we have to create SRC directory. Let me find some charger, 1 second. Alright, so we have to create a SRC directory, and in order to do this, I'm going to move my Cloudways Magento 2 Git project into the SRC directory. And currently we have SRC directory created. Git remote -v with Git configured for this project. And this Docker template is usually git ignore. Usually what is recommended, and what I also do together with a project Git repository, I create a new repository that will support my project locally. Basically all the Docker files are going to be under Git and is going to be called similar to name of the project. So it's Cloudways Magento -Docker. And in this way I can manage my Docker files. and share my Docker configuration for this project with my teammates. So if you are working on a project with 2 or more developers, you can share this Docker files that are configured specifically for this project. So what I have to do, git init, git add, git status, git commit added Docker project files, git branch -m main, git remote add origin, and git push -u origin main. Origin main, and I have my Docker project files located here. And as you can see, naming convention of the repository allows you to understand that this Docker project is related to a project named Cloudways Magento 2. In the meantime, we are waiting for a staging environment. And following instructions bin start. So yeah, --- now dev. However, before doing it, I have to run Docker. Docker desktop. And bin start. That will configure my Magento containers. My Magento containers. Bin copy to container all. -- all will copy src directory. So let's do this. Src directory is our project files. As you can see, creation of the staging environment takes a little bit longer than initial creation of the server with Magento 2 because it physically have to copy probably. Well, I thought it's server copy, but it's only application copy. So it's probably including all the generated code directory, var directory, static content, and so on, and make a replica or copy of the dependencies or software dependencies that are required to be, and database copy are required for staging environment to be fully functional and independent and at the same time to production environment. Alright, the next step is bin composer install. And I'm probably running Magento I have to download .246, or I have to, yeah, I have to download 246. Oops, 246. So I can run composer install mv src to src alt composer install with the correct version of PHP, because it happens that sometimes you miss some command and or incorrect version, but at least it's doable to rerun some commands instead of reconfiguring manually all the dependencies that are required for a lower or higher version of Magento 2 application. Dependencies of these different versions. Okay, bin stop. mv src alt to be Cloudways Magento 2 and cd Magento. So we can delete all containers and networks and everything, or we can mkdir Magenta, cd Magenta, download and bin download 246 community. In the meantime, we have created a staging environment where we can navigate and use password protection. So let me test it and then let me disable it. Okay, so we have staging that is different from production. As we can see here, we have production and the URL is different. Yes. And let me disable password protection for my staging environment. But it's a nice and handy feature when it comes to configuring staging environments, because usually when you have staging environment, you have to make sure that your robots.txt file is correctly configured. So no bots are going to crawl your staging environment. But usually it's not the case. You have to make sure that you don't have sitemap, and you have to make sure that you have some password protection. That is the best practice when it comes to configuring staging environments. Deployment via Git for the staging environment has to be regenerated. SSH key has to be regenerated. Download SSH key. And as we can see, we can have a different repository for the staging environment. And I have to add this key that I downloaded to my GitHub account, because we have an error, access rights issue. So under my profile on GitHub, under settings, I will click SSH and GPG keys, and I will add Cloudways title, key for staging, and I will reuse that key that I just generated. Okay, authenticate. But in the meantime, for the staging environment, I can pick develop branch and I can deploy to a directory that is responsible for staging environment. But what I wanted to also check, cloning repository. Okay. I may need to wait. So what I wanted to do, bin configure a command for containers, bin remove all containers networks, bin remove all. So what we have staging environment with Git configured to watch and deploy develop branch, and so let me copy password so I can log into the server. So here I have applications and I have two directories. And second directory, which is djd, that I believe that is going to be staging. Yeah, djd is staging. Git remote minus list. Git, there is no git. Anyway, so what we have here? Why don't we have git? So we need to configure git here in a similar way as we have for production. Git status, git remote minus v, git remote minus v. So deployment via Git allows us to deploy directly from a GitHub, from a remote address based on a branch into the repository. And in order for me to test that it goes and deploys, I will create test.txt file. So let's say it's a new file that I'm going to add into the develop branch. Edit test file. Let's say it's some file, I don't know, some Magento 2 file that we're going to add to develop branch, and we are going to pull changes for the staging environment. ls-la. And as we can see, we just successfully deployed test.txt file from develop branch. At the same time, we don't have git remote -v git configured for this staging environment. However, we do have git configured on the production environment. And if we go and run and deploy pull deploy for production directory public HTML git not git ls-la, we can see that it's still in progress. It should not give us this test.txt file because of the fact that we deploy different branch. And in this way you can have two different applications configured to configure it with two different branches, and you can deploy changes independently. Check Magento 2 and staging Magento 2. And once you are happy, so you tested changes on a staging environment, you are happy with your testing results, and you can go ahead and create a pull request, review this pull request, merge this pull request to main branch, and you can go back and you will navigate to deployment via Git, and you can hit pull, and in this way you can deploy changes to the production environment, that is your production Magento 2 application. So there are some other settings we can check. You can have some granular settings that can be changed via panel or this web console, even like PHP FPM settings if you need to increase memory, limit Magento 2 requirement, blah blah, max execution time, varnish, that is handy. And you can even configure Cloudflare with additional $5 per month with additional CDN, WAF, so it's web application firewall in case you have some attacks, image optimization, mobile optimization, DDoS protection. So where we are? We've successfully configured server with two applications, Magento 1 and Magento 2. We configured different applications for, sorry, not Magento 1 and Magento 2, production and staging environment. we configure different branches, and when I merge this branch, develop branch to master, I can go ahead and navigate to deployment via Git, hit pull, and it will give me my changes. The question would be that we will answer probably in the upcoming videos, is that git pull is not enough for deploying Magento. The question is Cloudways deployment via Git if Cloudways is running bin Magento commands like setup, compile, upgrade. It's not clear, so we need to test it before. Deployment logs. We can have a look at deployment logs. So this is our production, and as we can see, we have this test file deployed successfully, and I hope I didn't break our production environment. Yes, I didn't. Test.txt. So you can, in this way, you can transfer your files or your changes, your extensions or bug fixes via Git, and you can deploy on different environments such as staging, user acceptance testing, performance, developer environment, and up to we wanted to check deployment logs up to production environment. So the only thing that is running is git pull region main, and it may not be enough. What I'm trying to say is that if we run deployment via Git, it would not be enough for Magento 2 to just have git pull origin main. It will also be required to go into via SSH and run bin Magento commands to make sure that your application successfully upgraded. And we need to run like setup, compile, static content generate, whatever the other few commands that are required depending on your complexity of your application. And in this way you can ensure that your Magento 2 application has been successfully configured, installed, and deployed to one of the environments. So this is what I wanted to share with you on this live stream. Please let me know in the comments what is your experience deploying to cloud hosting, deploying Magento to cloud hosting. What is your branching strategy when it comes to building or running Magento 2 projects, and I would be happy to answer your questions. And make sure to check below in this video, in the description, Cloudways link. They offer a good servers and automation for you to run your Magento 2 production staging environments without any hassle, without you trying to spend 8-10 hours and configure everything on your own. And just with simple few clicks you can configure Magento 2 production environment with some tunings that we are going to discuss in the upcoming videos, staging environment, and you can manage all the configuration settings, application settings, not like all, but critical settings via this console, web console or web platform that Cloudways provides. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and share this video with your colleagues, and I would be happy to see your questions below this video and your valuable time next time when we will have a live stream. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.